Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another Sree COVID-19 call. This is a global conversation about what's happening around the COVID-19 crisis. I do this every day. This is day 26. That means 26 days of lockdown here in New York City. I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I am delighted that I can have this opportunity to talk to all of you. Several of you have written to me saying how uplifting this is to have this session happen every day. But I want to tell you that I benefit more from it. It's uplifting for me more than it is for you. Right now, if you can go onto my Facebook and hit share, find this video and hit share. And I want my guests to do that as well. Go onto Facebook and hit share. If you're on Twitter, hit retweet. If you're on LinkedIn, hit share, so that people from around the world can join us, your friends, your family. Everybody should get in on this conversation. We are going to meet some fabulous guests and talk about what's happened behind the news this week. And I am going to just give you a sense of what we're going to be doing. This is episode 26, News You Missed. So many big important stories are slipping through the cracks because of the crisis. Let's revisit some. And we want you to send us your suggestions as well. So please comment and post and tag your friends, and let's make sure that more people can watch. I'm also experimenting on Instagram Live, where I'm showing you kind of the back of the house operations with a camera that I'm just going to show you here, or what that looks like. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of what's happening here. Instagram does not have live through the platform we use called StreamYard, but at least people who are watching can get a sense of this. And I'm sreenet on Instagram. So if you want to check that out, you want to see the screen and what I do, that's all on Instagram. Otherwise, we're live on Twitter, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and live on LinkedIn. And so everyone, please tag your friends so that everybody can be here. My name is Sree Sreenivasan. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism at Stony Brook University on Long Island. And I today taught my second week of fully online classes. They had an extended spring break. So it's really fascinating to see how our students are adjusting to everything that's happening, learning from them about their current situation and about their families. And the Zoom calls are how we're doing it, as a lot of people around the world are as well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you're feeling, what you're thinking about. That's what the show is all about, gathering and talking and learning together. And we want to tell you about our guests. Bob Anthony is a veteran technology journalist, and Vandana Menon is a freelance journalist at New York Bob and at _Vandana Menon. And Rose Horowitz is live tweeting, as she always does, at Rose Horowitz 31. So make sure you follow them. And also, please do connect with me on Twitter at Sree, Instagram, sreenet. But probably the best way to track the show is to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So if you haven't done that yet, please do so. Let me show you who is watching from various places in the world. We're just so happy to be able to get these comments and people coming in. Jonathan Borstein, first in, as he always is. Greetings from the East Village. My dad is watching from Kerala in India. Hi, Dad. Very nice to see you. Carolyn Lee is watching from Hawaii. So we have the East Village, Kerala, and Hawaii in the first three people who checked in. Steve is watching from Philadelphia on YouTube. Joe is watching from Georgia. Joe, always good to have you. Geeta from Memphis. This is a global conversation. We have Mark Lee watching from Durham, North Carolina. Chetna from New Jersey. Tim Sohn is watching. Says, what kind of tripod are you using? Not a very good one, because I didn't have enough time to set it up. And that's why you need a production team. And Mark says, thank you for introducing him to Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar, who was a fabulous guest on the show. Paulette is watching from the 23rd floor. Neil Parekh is watching from Springfield, Virginia, and he'll check out Facebook. He's watching from YouTube. Carlos watching from Cape Coral, Florida. Linda Lawrence from Long Island. Steve says Rose rocks. Rose Horowitz rocks. Hello from St. Louis, Ramona. We've got lots of new people joining us. We are very, very grateful. Mark says the Carolina Theater is doing an executive search for a new director. We Zoom met with the search firm lead. How interesting. So Zoom is everywhere. Geeta says, I tried using Yellow Duck desktop application to push the video into Instagram via RTMP in StreamYard. Geeta, you are very tech savvy. That is awesome. Iman is watching from Chicago, and we have somebody watching from Canada. We have people watching from Hudson Valley. Just so good to have all of you here. Thank you. You lift me up by being here together. Please tag your friends, because this is a show that you don't want to miss, because it's all about the news you missed. And before I introduce you to our guests, I just want to tell you about our sponsors, because it's so wonderful that we have sponsors, because that means one day I'll be able to get producers for the show. If you've done, and if you watch the New York Times read along, which we do 8:30 a.m. Sundays, and this past week we had the incredible Harlan Coben with us, best-selling author, creator of 3 Netflix originals, including The Stranger and Safe, and he was on, and we have people from around the world join us for that. You can go back into my YouTube/Sreenet and watch the entire episode. That's produced by 4 people, me plus Neil Parekh plus Paula Kiger plus Steve Taylor. And because of that, it's a really slick show. This show is me all by myself, so it is the opposite of slick. And that's why we need producers, and that's why we need sponsors. And we'd love to get more sponsors, and to get sponsors, we need to have you folks think about that. So first, let me thank the people who have sponsored us. Look at this, frontlinefoodtrucks.com. Donate today to support New York Food Truck Association as it feeds frontline healthcare workers. Food is donated by La Colombe, Sweet Green, and Chobani, but they need money in order to feed more than just NYU Langone. They're trying to raise $500,000. Please donate right now. It'll be a chance for you to support this show and those workers. And the beautiful part is that this money for this ad was donated by a third-party donor who didn't want Frontline Food Trucks to spend money on advertising. So that is a very generous soul and a supporter of both the show, the food truck workers, as well as the healthcare workers. So please go to frontlinefoodtrucks.com and donate right now. It'd be a great thing that you are doing for your karma to help so many people. And we do have a very reasonable rate for sponsorships. And if there's something you want to promote, maybe there's a startup you want to promote or a nonprofit you want to promote, you can promote that right now by sending me an email, sree@sree.net. Take a screenshot of this or take a photo of this, and that way you'll be able to support what we're doing here and support the nonprofits, the businesses, the individuals that you want to give a shout out to. Maybe you want to do a birthday greeting, right? You can do almost anything on this platform, and I would love to help you. And then I want to give a shout out to our very first sponsor, whose last ad runs its course today, and this is the ad for our friend Tim Sohn, who's running a live stream course, and he ran the ad with us here on the show, and I'm so grateful to him for doing that. And he said, I highly recommend becoming a sponsor of Sree shows. When the sponsorship started, I had 6 people in my course. Now I have 30. What? Many of whom are Sree fans, says Tim Sohn. So if you want to hire him for live stream consulting and more, go to sohnsocialmediasolutions.com or email him tim@sohnsocialmediasolutions.com, SOHN socialmediasolutions.com. We'd love to see him get the support he needs. Hire him for his work and show that sponsorship works when you support the Sree Daily COVID-19 show. And last thing before we bring in our guests, people have been writing about the show, which I'm so grateful for. Journalists are watching. Journalists are getting ideas. They're booking our guests as guests on their shows. So we love that. But please check out this article about how we're hosting the conversation. And it's also very popular on digital. We've had more than 5 million people have seen tweets about the Sree COVID-19 call. That's just the hashtag, and not everybody can remember this complicated hashtag, and 20 million impressions. So enough sales. Thank you for watching. I'm so grateful. Please tag me at Sree. Please email me, sree@sree.net. Neil is putting in the link for the New York Times read along with Harlan Coben, which is great. And Stefan says, hi, Bob. Hi, Vandana. So let's bring them in, folks. I am giving you a heads up so that you can look up at the camera. And here we go. And there's New York Bob. Hi, New York Bob. And hi, Vandana.
Hello.
Thank you both for being here. They are just fabulous people who are taking the time to spend with us. Please follow them, Robert Anthony, Bob Anthony, and Vandana Menon, and you can follow their Twitter handles right now. You're going to get to know them. And I'm going to start, as I do every session, by asking how you are, where you are, what you're up to. So let's start with Vandana, and then we'll go to Bob.
Hi, Sree. I'm okay. I'm in Philadelphia, staying here. I've been quarantining for a month now, nearly, and I'm okay. I've been able to be productive. I've had things going on. It's not too different from what I was doing before in any way. Like, I've spent a lot of time online writing, so it's been it's been not too different. Hearing about all of the things happening outside has been really difficult, though. I've been trying to go out and get some fresh air, and it's always so reassuring to see people outside as well, even though it feels so dystopian right now. Yeah, I'd say I'm okay for now.
And you're in Philly, and you graduated from UPenn?
Yes, so I recently graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in December, which is why I'm still in Philadelphia. I've been looking for jobs, and I've been working part-time for this great online publication called The Juggernaut, which focuses on South Asian news. And campus is, I'm still living on campus, and it feels very different from the rest of the city because there's always policemen making sure that people are staying indoors, and it just feels very different to the rest of the city.
And what is your sense of how people are doing the distancing part?
When I go out, I see that there are people on the streets. However, I did go to Trader Joe's earlier this week, and it was my first time standing in a physically distanced queue, and they were sanitizing all of the grocery carts, and I'm glad that kind of thing is happening. At the local corner shop, there's now plexiglass between the person at the counter and people interacting. So all of those changes are being made. Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's Vandana Menon. Please follow her, and she's a freelance journalist, and check her out on Twitter. Now, let's say hi to our veteran tech journalist, Robert S. Anthony. I've known him for 25 years. I've been a fan for 25 years. He's an awesome guy. He was on my third show here on the COVID-19 call. Some of you know that I also have a spin-off show on WBAI 99.5 FM, Saturdays, noon to 2, and I hope you will all tune in for that. And I wanted him as my very first guest, and he was kind enough to come on there and really help me launch. I felt a degree of comfort, Bob, because you were there with me. And here you are, one of my first return guests on this show. So thank you for everything you do, and thank you for being a leader in tech journalism for the rest of us to follow.
I really appreciate that, Sree, and it's the feeling is mutual. It's real comfortable when I get to talk to you, just a friend from way back from the Deadline Club, from the New York Association of Black Journalists. It's a pleasure. And to anticipate your question, I went out again last night to do some shopping. I'm a night owl as it is, and I tend to do my shopping at night. And I filled up on groceries, and once again, I was the only customer in the store. There were people stacking the shelves, and I had to really admire them to be out and stacking and making sure the rest of us have the food and the milk and the juices that we need. So when a very nice clerk saw me with two little shopping baskets full of food, she asked if I was ready to check out. I said, "Don't worry, I'll do the self-checkout. Just, be safe and do what you need to do." But this neighborhood is quiet. On the walk to the Rite Aid, there was only I think I passed two people, and no, 3 people. One was a police officer in front of the 76th precinct. I had to give him a thumbs up just for being there. So, so it's a strange time even for freelancers like me, who I'm used to a weird schedule.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Tell them which part of New York you are too.
I'm in Brooklyn. If people know where the Battery Tunnel pops out in Brooklyn, it's not quite Red Hook. It's not quite Carroll Gardens. It's the, quote, Columbia Street Waterfront District. And depending on how high they pile the containers at the seaport, I can see the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. You can see the statue. Folks, we have people on LinkedIn as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm trying to go to all the different places and check out the comments. I'm going to read you some of the LinkedIn comments, which are very nice. Tazeen Rizvi is watching from Canada, right outside Toronto. Eddie Vega's in the epicenter of C19, New York City. Chris Gorman's watching from Manhattan. Thank you, Chris, for all your support. And Dr. Lippy Roy, who was the very first guest on this show and the first return guest, is also with us. She says hi from Manhattan. And James Canton is watching from Naples, Florida. And Amar asks, and I don't know if anybody on any of the platforms knows this answer, what's the right way to ask innovative companies in other countries like India to send us a few hundred ventilators? And that's sort of the situation that America has found itself in, that it needs to be looking to other countries for help. And I don't know if anyone has the answer to that particular question. And if there are, in fact, ventilators coming from other places. There was some back and forth between Modi and Trump, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. And so we'll probably touch upon some of these things as we go forward. But the idea of the show today, just to catch everyone up, is that we wanted to talk about the news that we've been missing, because there is, in fact, so much news going on. Every day I feel there's some headline that would have been like a global story, and we just don't pay attention because there's so many other global stories. I did a sort of a show a little bit about that because of our friend Bill Ritter on last Saturday. He had COVID-19. If a major anchor like him had COVID-19, that would be a big story. But again, it's lost and everything. But please go back and watch this on my YouTube channel, folks. Subscribe and watch. That was an incredible hour that he gave us. I know Bob was there. He got to talk to him, ask questions. And it even has a cameo appearance by Dr. Ruth Westheimer, the great relationships doctor. And that's where I want to start with, Bob. I asked you to kind of reflect a little bit as a journalist who has been around the block as I have as well. What is this news cycle like? And it's not one news cycle, right? It's a bunch of rolling news cycles all day long.
Oh, right. And it's not just a rolling news cycle. It's a rolling news cycle with fewer people to cover it. I mean, I believe the Cleveland Plain Dealer just did some layoffs or buyouts recently. Last year there was a lot more of that. I guess even in Milwaukee, the current paper out there is had some buyouts recently, I believe. So you have fewer journalists covering this in the first place. And, with the 24-hour cycle, it's hard to keep up. You want to be newsy, you want to be current, and in the rush to become current, a lot of news gets overlooked. I would bet you a lot of people didn't realize that the founder of Black Enterprise died today, Earl Graves Jr. Yesterday, Earl Graves Sr. Excuse me, and news like that gets overlooked.
Oh my God, I'm sorry to interrupt, Bob. I did not know that. I met him. I'm a big admirer of him. Mr. Graves passed away. See, I missed that news. Thank you for telling me. I'll write a note to his family. We know the Graves family very well. I've done work with Black Enterprise, a great publication. So you happen to just catch the news, is that right?
I had to be prompted by someone else who caught the news. That's just it. I consider myself a journalist, but even that would have gotten by me if someone else hadn't text messaged me or where did I see it? It was in my Facebook feed, so it would have been easy to miss.
Yeah, and here Cami says, hi from Houston. It seems there has to be a COVID-19 angle to get any attention to something. Can you reflect on that for us?
Yeah, and that's what people are looking for. People are, as you know, I don't need to explain this. They're desperate for immediate information they can use. The worst thing about this pandemic are the unknowns. We don't know where it's going. We don't know what to do with it right now, and we don't know if we did in the past was the right thing. We even changed our policy on face masks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And kind of crazy that how we went from no face masks, and it's a cultural thing. I did a session from Hong Kong with one of the great microbiologists who's an expert on SARS and helped identify SARS, and he's working on a vaccine now. And there's a cultural difference where in East Asia, wearing masks is considered normal and healthy behavior. In America, it's considered problematic. And so even now, President Trump says, the guidelines that his own staff are telling people you should wear a mask. He's saying, I won't wear a mask because I don't want world leaders to see me without a mask. How many world leaders is he meeting these days anyway? It's, it doesn't make sense. My friend Ying Chan is watching from Hong Kong, and she says, hello from Hong Kong. Your efforts and spirit are infectious. Thank you. Janet is watching from Murdoch, Minnesota. And Paula Geiger is watching from Tallahassee, one of the great producers on our team. She just does a great job. Let's go to Vandana and talk to her. As a journalist who is, in the first years of your career, you've lived in India and lived here. What do you make of this paying attention to news?
I think more than needing to have a COVID angle, I feel like the pandemic has kind of like eclipsed everything else. So now any other major headline is sort of being co-opted under the COVID title. When I was thinking about all the important things that we should talk about today, like it was so difficult to separate what's coronavirus related and what's not. And it seems so bizarre that all of these normal, well, not necessarily normal things, but like climate change isn't stopping. I read a news report today on how the Great Barrier Reef is still slowly deteriorating, and it's like the world. It feels like we've stopped and we're paying attention to what's happening, but the rest of the world isn't, and it's a very strange experience. I was reading today about the U.S. Talks with with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and that's huge news. It's huge news that the U.S. was going to call off the war, essentially bringing an end to 18 years, and that's I haven't seen that really being part of public discourse. I mean that basically today that got called off, but I just think that there doesn't seem to be space for anything else but news that's related to the pandemic.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Your dad is watching.
Oh.
He says, great to see fellow students of Tim Sohn's class on this call. A shout out to them. It is my daughter, Vandana Menon, who is on Sree Sreenivasan's call today. So that's pretty cool.
Wednesday morning.
Yeah, Wednesday morning in India. So my dad's watching, your dad's watching. That's great. Here's a question from Mark Lee. Are we finding journalists who are arts reporters and sports reporters doing more news coverage out of their realm because there's less to cover? Just like we're seeing doctors who are not frontline doctors, who are, because of all elective procedures are not being conducted, are being roped in. We are seeing some journalists who are being forced to flex new muscles. But as Bob said, this is a really hard time for journalists because news organizations in the middle of this are closing down as well. Let's see if we can catch, and folks, just share any news that you think people should know. Just write it up in here so that I can read that out to our audience. So let's go. We have curated a bunch of news stories that we wanted you to see, and I'm going to start, and then our team's going to follow. And the first story that I wanted to show you is about an app that I love, and I love it so much that if you Google or if you go into Twitter and look up Dark Sky app and my name, you'll see so many stories, so many tweets by people saying how much I love Dark Sky. This is a popular app that I've talked about in more than 30 countries. I've done workshops where I've talked about this since 2013. And I love this app. And what it does, it tells you if it's going to rain or snow where you're standing for the next hour. And that's all it does. And it was started as a Kickstarter effort, and now it became so successful. But Apple has bought this. and they're going to shut down the Android version, which means that they're going to put all their energy into improving the Apple version and therefore fixing the Apple weather alerts, which are not very specific compared to the Apple, to the Dark Sky project. So I encourage you all to check out Dark Sky if you have an iPhone, but they are shutting down the Android version July 1st. And I guess they're going to build that all into the app. And I don't know if either of you have used it, but I'm a huge fan of it. And I know that Iman says that she bought it when they suggested it, that Starbucks gave it away for free. I didn't even know that. It's the $3 app. And Tim says, I'm an Android user, so he doesn't know. And Iman says that Dark Sky is amazing. So this is an example of kind of tech stories. And I wonder what tech stories that Bob has kind of pulled up for us. And we created a little Google Doc so that we could, and we're going to show the behind the scenes here so that people can see, Bob, what we were working on. And so we called it the News You Missed COVID-19 call. And we have a document with 2 of these. So why don't we start here? You actually have an Apple Store story that you want us to take a look at. So start talking about it, and then I will click and bring it on, Bob. So go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the app that you just mentioned. I was not familiar with it until you mentioned it, but that's an example of tech news that's, if it had happened at any other time than now, would have been just blown across CNET, The Verge, Android Central, BGR. People would be smoking mad over the Android shutdown, but they're a little too busy right now to cover it. Apple Store, as you can see, they leaked an image of a 4.7-inch iPhone SE. The fact that it was called an SE to begin with is it's sort of what Apple does to indicate a quote budget unit. So not only is the phone smaller and supposedly would have the most up-to-date chip in it, but it should be, well, hopefully it'll be affordable, which is one thing that iPhones are not. This type of news at a different time would have been blown up. It's being covered, but nobody's looking at the techie sites now as much as they would be. I mean, no one's really going to well, you should. Well, never mind. I was going to say something about the White House press conferences, but yeah, no one's looking at the tech news right now.
Right. So let's thank you, Bob. That was a very interesting story, and you're right. It would have been big news. By the way, what does SE stand for? Like Standard Edition or something like that?
I don't know exactly what it stands for, but it's been their designation in the past for a sort of a watered down edition, something that takes hundreds of dollars out of your pocket instead of thousands.
Right. And Vandana was talking about this story earlier.
Yeah.
The Taliban walk out of fruitless talks, but there was also, you said there was more to it than just the story, right?
Oh, yeah. They've been negotiating, the US has been negotiating with the Taliban almost through March, and there was going to be a prisoner swap, and it was another attempt towards peace in the region. But as of today, the Taliban have walked out and have said that it's fruitless. And it's been, Afghanistan has really been struggling because they've had testing in Afghanistan is very, very low, but the number of suspected COVID cases is extremely high because Afghanistan shares a border with Iran, and lots of people have been coming in from Iran. And The Guardian had a piece on a quarantine camp with people in. But just to go back to tech for a second, I forgot to mention this, but in India, Facebook is acquiring a 10% stake in Reliance Jio, which is a telecom company, and that's huge news because Jio is valued at $60 billion and is run by Mukesh Ambani, who is Asia's richest man. And normally, like, this would be massive news, but it just went under the radar completely.
Thank you, Vandana. So this is, folks, this is what we're trying to do. We're going to try to show you a range of stories. We're not saying these are more important than COVID. Obviously, they're not. But it's important because we have to find, when we get to a new normal, we have to kind of find out what else is happening. And it's not just stories like this. It's also that that autocrats are going to ram down things that down the throats of their countries because they know people are distracted. And we saw, even in the middle of this crisis, President Trump appointed a terrible person in charge of the EPA because he could, and he did. And this is an example of what a lot of autocratic countries are going to do in the middle of all this. And so journalists need to be watching and paying attention to this. So remember, folks, Rose Horowitz 31 is tweeting. So we want to make sure you check her out as at Rose Horowitz 31. And Mark Lee is asking what's going on with forest fires in California and with AIDS research in pre-COVID times. There would be big stories, and absolutely right. Stefan says, I don't do politics, but it's a national disgrace that White House press conferences have become mini Trump campaign events. What the hell do we learn from them? Nothing. And Rose is asking, do you have any links to share as we talk? We should have planned this better. It would have been great to just give a link to that document. So what I'm going to do in the back as we're doing this is to invite Rose into that document so that she can share those links. Thank you, Rose, for making this great, for doing that. We should have just tweeted out the whole document, but I didn't get a chance to do that. But we're learning, right? And hopefully these two will be back with me so that we can do this again in the future. And we're all learning so much about everything. Rose, you have the document with you now. So everybody's watching, share the stories you like so that we can get on and listen to you. What was the narcotics news the other day that came out of nowhere? I can't even, does anybody remember this story? Okay, so Tim, you'll have to tell us. But let's go back to Bob's list. And Bob, I'm going to pull up a story here about T-Mobile closes the big Sprint deal. So Bob does care about lots of things, including tech, and I asked him to focus on tech to get us started. So go ahead, Bob, here. Let me just share that screen with everybody. Here we go.
Sure. This was expected. We knew that T-Mobile and Sprint were going to get together. It just finalized within the last few days, and the CEO of T-Mobile, John Legere, is someone that he's a character within tech. So tech folks are sort of sorry to see him go. We used to sort of have side bets at T-Mobile press events to see how long it would take for him to swear during his presentation. Usually it was like less than 5 words. He'd get but
what did he do? Like drop F-bombs? What was he like?
He would swear through the presentation, and you would see some employees, T-Mobile employees, checking them off because there was a side bet going as to whether he would do 15 or 30. He was just that kind of gregarious person. So that type of tech person will be missed. But even though we knew that was coming. It just sort of became final this week as he stepped down and the new CEO took over. But for Sprint users, you'll see the good thing is that for Sprint users, they won't need to do any upgrades for the moment. Nothing will change. They'll stick to their plans, but the coverage will get much better, especially the upcoming 5G. But in the COVID-19 era, nobody cares about 5G. What they care about is just staying connected during video conferences.
We should say there is a 5G angle to the COVID-19. There's a bunch of 5G truthers out there who are spreading the word that COVID-19 is enhanced or forced into people's bodies through COVID. 5G causes harm, and this is proof of that. And that's a kind of ridiculous thing, including lots of celebrities. Woody Harrelson is involved in this. John Cusack.
No kidding.
Yeah, so Bob, I'd like you to go take a look at after this, and you'll be shocked about how 5G is being targeted by all these crazy folks. And a lot of it is, when there's confusion and uncertainty, you want to grasp anything that could give you some sense of certainty, and that's what people are doing there. And it's easy to blame 5G for this. But Bob, you've done enough research on the technical aspects of it. Just to remind us, for those of us who've never had 5G, I've never seen it in action, just broadly, I know you won't have the exact specs, but what is the difference? What will 5G mean to me as a internet user?
It's just not it's the fastest speed, of course, but it's not just that. It interconnects better. 5G technology is going to be used with autonomous vehicles. Just to give you a quick example, because it allows one vehicle to talk to the other vehicle, to talk to the traffic light, to the sensor under the street, and to have each other each element talk to each other quickly in real time is something that we can't do with 4G technology. So, but as far as cell phones are concerned, you'll be able to get denser. In other words, if they set up the right facility at Citi Field, if everyone gets on at the same time, you'll be okay.
Unlike now, where it can be a problem, right? When that
Yes.
when that happens.
Yes, not to say a lot of people go to Citi Field nowadays, but that's another story.
Right, that is, yeah, but that will all change, and we hope it'll all get better and things will go back to normal. All right, we have a story here about that has been found by Vandana. Let me just bring that up, Vandana. It's about something out of Saudi Arabia, so you can explain what that is. Go ahead.
So this came out last week, and there was a whistleblower who claims that the Saudi Arabian government is keeping tabs on what their citizens are doing in the US, and is exploiting and is using information from major telecom operators. And this could be it could potentially have been a story about espionage and spying, and something that could have really triggered off a lot, especially on the back of what was happening with in Ukraine and things like that. But this just went completely, just fell through the cracks. And I just thought it was a really good piece by The Guardian, and it goes into a lot more detail. I'm not too sure exactly how they were getting that information, but I also wanted to add, just as of today, actually, speaking to misinformation and how there's lots of rumors being spread about COVID and how it could spread. WhatsApp has introduced a new feature limiting people's forwards. So now they're essentially trying to make sure that there's fewer forwards being sent. And I think that that's a pretty good move. I don't yet know whether that will help reduce misinformation and fake news, but let's see.
Let's talk about WhatsApp for a second. For those of us who have international backgrounds and who love WhatsApp and use it every day, some of us may be shocked to learn that Americans are not big WhatsApp users. One of my former students, did a story just this year. It's called "What's Up with WhatsApp in America," and Americans, just unless they have a foreign connection, are international themselves, have traveled a lot, they just don't need it because they use Messenger and texting. SMS works so well in America that they don't need it. And so they're getting used to understanding what WhatsApp is. But the fact that you can't forward more than, so they already had limited it after the problems in India to 5 forwards at a time or something.
Yeah.
So now it's even less than 5, is that right?
Yeah, no, it's essentially, if a message has been forwarded 5 or more times, there will be a new limit on that user.
Oh, okay.
So basically the user is being flagged as someone who passes or spreads fake information.
Wow. And I just want to bring up some comments. Chetna said the story about 5G is ridiculous. And Twyla says those same people say windmills and wind farms cause cancer. And that's what we were talking about. We also got some great comments coming in here from people. Stefan says, speaking of being connected, I'm getting a 100-foot Ethernet cable to run my MacBook throughout my house, different rooms, upper and lower, so that I have major speed and no Zoom freeze, etc. What do you think of that, Bob, as an effort to try and control things? I should tell you, I got my 50-foot cable here to do this. I'm now running off Ethernet on my when I do my shows. This was my pal Andrew Lee suggested we do that because Wi-Fi, when especially everybody's using it, can jam. So I have a 6-foot and now a 50-foot cable, but Stefan has a 100-foot cable, Bob.
All I have here is a 50 to reach from the living room to the back. But that's a good idea. If you can Ethernet it, that's the way to go. But a good friend on the east side of Manhattan just gave me another tip, sort of an old school tip. Do you remember Sree power line networking?
Yes.
Those gadgets where you use the power lines in your own home as the Ethernet as the connection. He said he used that because all of his kids were glomming the Wi-Fi, and now he has for a low cost solid connection between the printer and everything else, and the kids are fine using the power line networking for the Xbox. Which,
So how do people find out more about this? You must have written an article, but where else can they find more things on this?
simply Google Powerline, one word, that's what it's called, and you'll find even on Amazon or Best Buy, relatively inexpensive gadgets. One
In the
gets
US.
connected.
Yeah, but it only
Yeah.
works probably in the US. You need electrical systems that do this. It may work in some other countries, but may
No,
not everywhere.
all it does is use your existing electrical network to send the signal. It really doesn't matter what power is on the line.
So if
You
it's a
can use-
220 or 110, it doesn't matter. Okay, that's
No, it doesn't.
I'm learning from you. Thank you, Bob.
Yes.
I'm just going to reset here. We have about 20 minutes or so. If we can extract a little more time from our guests, we'll keep them for as long as we can. Folks, you're watching the Sree COVID-19 Daily Global Call. My name is Sree Sreenivasan. My email is right there on the screen, sree@sree.net, @Sree, and sreenet on YouTube. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. And I'm so proud of my students for what they're doing through this crisis and how we're doing our classes. I also want to do a shout out to our sponsors. There's Sohnsocialmediasolutions.com, Sohn, S-O-H-N, socialmediasolutions.com. Email Tim at Sohnsocialmediasolutions.com, TIM. Connect with him. They're live streaming, consulting, and much more. And they'll help you get your message out there during coronavirus and beyond. And also a big shout out to our other sponsor, frontlinefoodtrucks.com. Frontline Food Trucks. Donate today to support New York Food Truck Association as it feeds frontline healthcare workers. And they've got food donated by La Colombe, Sweet Green, and Chobani. And a third party paid for this ad so that they didn't have to take any money from the food truck people. There's a GoFundMe. Please go to frontlinefoodtrucks.com, make a donation, and please also consider being a sponsor. Maybe you have nothing to sell, but you want to sponsor your favorite nonprofit or your favorite author, or wish someone a birthday, or do a marriage proposal. I don't know. We can do anything here on the screen. This is my show, and you can see the prices are so reasonable. Take a photo, and we'd love to have more sponsors so that I can pay for somebody to help me produce the show, so I'm not doing it in this very bad way that I do it compared to the professionals who run the New York Times read-along. All right, let's get back to our guests. There's Bob Anthony, and there's Vandana Menon. Please follow them. They are sharing so many good stories and good ideas. And if you haven't shared this show, please hit share right now in Facebook, in Twitter, in YouTube, in LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram Live. I'm just trying to show a little bit of the back of the house here. You can see how this is all set up. It's kind of backwards in the video because of the way Instagram is set up. So when you see, you won't be able to read, but you can get a sense of what the backstage looks like. I'm Sreenet on Instagram, Sreenet on YouTube. So please subscribe to my COVID-19 call so that you can see this. Let's go to a story that Vandana has shared. Let's see. So before we do that, I have a story from Bob's collection first. And this is the story that got this all started, Bob, why we're doing this, because you told me about something that happened in my own neighborhood and I had completely missed. And this was a story about a fire in a subway station, multiple subway stations, arson. And I had never heard of it except from you. And even since then, Bob, I've not heard of this from anyone except you.
Yeah, and you and Vandana channeled your parents as you came on the air, so I'm going to do the same. I'm channeling my father, who's not with us anymore because he was a transit worker, and that's why a story like this jumps out at me. By
the way, just 1 second, Bob, just a shout out to
Sure.
all transit workers who are working so hard now, running the buses and the subways. They're frontline workers, just like the grocery store clerks, just like the nurses, everybody who is working now. Thank you. By the way, on a very early one of these calls, we said, why are they still collecting money from the bus drivers at the front of the bus in New York City, where you get in, you pay? Why have that interaction? Why not just let people get on the bus from the back? Sure enough, 3 days later, they announced that anybody can get on the bus in the back. And not because of the show, I'm sure, but just we need to try new things. If we're going to force workers to work, we should give them every opportunity to be safe in what we're doing. And a salute to your father, who was a transit worker, worked at the subway system. We're so grateful for them. How many millions of people, if you cumulatively hundreds of millions of people, he helped in his lifetime. So salute to your dad.
I appreciate that. But yeah, we were just having a conversation last Sunday, and I just happened to mention, because I had just heard it on the radio and I had to jump to the internet to look it up, and there wasn't much. But basically, a number 2 train caught fire at 110th Street and Central Park North, and the subway train, the car burned to the shell. I mean, the complete car burned to the ceiling. All of the seats were burnt. And they had to evacuate passengers. Luckily, the train was in the station, so the passengers could get out there. But the train behind it was stalled, and they had to take those passengers out through the tunnel, which is never good. One fatality, the motorman of the first train. At any other time, this is a gigantic national story. When a subway train burst into flames, and someone dies. And in addition to the train that burned, there were fires set at the 86th Street, 96th Street, and 116th Street station. And even though the 96th Street station is yours, Sree, you didn't know about it because it wasn't covered at all at that moment. And the suspect, as far as I know, hasn't been. They have a suspect, but he's on another charge. They haven't been able to pin this one on him yet.
But just imagine that, right? Like, that tells you something about the state of the news cycle. And by the way, in every crisis, there's always someone who decides to do things like this. But this is very dramatic. And thank you for flagging that. And that triggered the whole show. By the way, I'm always looking for story ideas for the segments we do here. So please send in your suggestions for speakers, themes. Suggest your friends. Self-nominations welcome. We're going to do this every day until the crisis is over, or until I get COVID or something else changes. I plan to be here every single day. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting us and for sharing right now. Share this with your friends and family. Tag them. There's somebody who would benefit from watching this. So Vandana, let's go on to, you've got some positive stories as well. So let's do that. First positive story from Vandana. She was our negative Nancy for a little bit, but let's see if we can pull this up. Why don't you start talking about the story of Pakistan, and I'll find it for you. Go ahead.
No, I was actively looking for positive, like light, heartwarming stories. And I thought this one is a really good example of that. So Pakistan is, until 3 days ago, had the highest number of cases in South Asia. And they have a crippled healthcare system. The issue that's in Pakistan is that religious, like going to the mosque on Friday hasn't been stopped. So they've placed a curfew. So people are still going out to do namaz at mosques, and that's a massive threat. So Pakistan is dealing with all of those issues, but there are also people who are helping the poor using zakat, which is an Islamic law, kind of. It's similar to tithe in Catholic Christianity, where you essentially pay a certain percentage of your income, and you donate it to the poor. So it's like a charity tax, and so lots of people have been taking to the streets of Karachi and offering food, money, and other forms of help to whoever they can in the form of zakat. And I think that's just so nice. It's like a nice confluence of religion and actually helping.
So we're also teaching people new things if they're not familiar with Islamic practice. So zakat is like tithing in America. In the Western or Christianity, many denominations of Christianity have tithing as a way where you donate 1/10 of your income. Some Hinduism sects also have that, giving money to their sect or their leader. But this is something that I'm glad you found a positive story. Let's also check in with some people. So Sabahat's watching, and he says checking in. And Carolyn Lee is saying that she says, thank you, Sree, Vandana, and Bob. Thank you. She's watching in Hawaii. So Bob and Vandana, we're big in Hawaii at the moment, which is exciting. And Sabahat, who is from Pakistan, he said, I visited Karachi after 12 years, and one of the things I noticed was there are now literal soup kitchens all over the middle and working class neighborhoods. These organizations are religious, ethnic, charitable. And Rose is saying this is like the tzedakah in the Jewish religion. So that's fascinating. And Catherine Brill says, I hope everyone stays healthy. Absolutely. And Twyla says to Bob that no news about the burning train in New York, the train subway cars, even on 1010 radio because of coronavirus. So this is just, this is why we need this show. And we're so glad people are watching. Please tag your friends. Please share this with them. And we'll do this again if these guys are up for it in a few days or in a couple of weeks. We'll do that. Let's get some more quick stories in
Speaking of positive news and essential workers and people on the front line, New Zealand just declared the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy to be essential workers, which I just thought was so sweet. Yeah, if you can pull that story up.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up right now, and somebody talked about this on yesterday's show as a kind of branding of New Zealand, right? This is pretty cool, so that they'll come. They said they might even be a little late. The Tooth Fairy might be a little late, if but that was I think that was a great story. So let me pull that up so you can see it. And there it is. The Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy are deemed essential workers. So that's pretty cool. I think, Bob, this is in keeping with Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who is considered pretty cool and just doing interesting things and caring a lot about her people. So I think that's pretty cool. And Sabahat says, Rose Horowitz, that would be Sadaqah, which is optional giving. Zakat is a basic pillar of practice, mandatory giving out of one's wealth every year. And it's usually done in Ramadan. But this year, people are giving and are being encouraged to do it now. Isn't that wonderful? And there we have some cross-cultural, cross-religious conversation going on as well. All right, Bob, what do you have for us? I have many of your stories. Which one should I go to, Bob?
Maybe you can pull up the one about the pipeline. But yeah, it's always good, the Excel pipeline. I can try to queue it up myself while we're here.
Yeah,
it's always good to hear good news. I also like I guess there was a video of puppies walking around an aquarium because the aquarium is closed to people. But now they, just in the interest of equal time, they just did the same video with kittens. So
nice.
we need a little good news about that. But basically, and you can see the headline, Big Oil is using the coronavirus pandemic to push through the Keystone XL pipeline. And by push through, even during this stay-at-home, don't go anywhere ruling in so many states, these oil companies are moving people, getting workers in position so they can start digging and building this pipeline, which is vehemently opposed by Native Americans and others because of the possible environmental damage and the eminent domain and other legal pressures put on native lands. So this is way in the background. They're slipping this through because basically they know Native Americans, they're not going to come out now to protest. It's a dangerous time for everybody. So they can slip this by now. This is an opinion. This is a pretty detailed piece, but it's just the type of news that's being overlooked. It's just not going to generate traction as long as the pandemic is going.
Thank you. And I hope Rose or anyone else watching will tag the great Bill McKibben, who is one of the greatest environmental reporters and writers of our time, and that we have him on this show. We'd love to get him on a future show to talk about the planet and what's happening. There's so many things happening right now that are a problem. Steve, this is Sabahat says, on the other hand, in Kerala, I believe liquor stores have been declared essential or should be, and there have been other problems as well. And Steve says, I feel so connected to my online community, and I'm so thankful to you all. Rose explains that the Jewish practice is not mandatory, though we're told it will be remembered in the high holy days. And so that's nice. And Twyla says, yes, Trump and supporters are raping the earth, air, and water. And Sabat says, all good deeds are to be remembered. No, the prophet is reported to have said that even a smile can be considered tzedakah, which is nice. And Carolyn in Hawaii says, Yahoo Entertainment reports John Prine has died from COVID-19. Can someone tell us about John Prine? I'm sorry to say I'm not familiar. So Carolyn, we'll ask you to tell us. I think Vandana is Googling frantically right now.
He's an American country folk singer-songwriter.
Yeah. And this also tells you something, and I'm sorry to hear of his passing, that so many things are like, there are people who are literal rock stars in their world that are not known in other circles. Sometimes it's by a factor of age, right? My kids will mention some musician I've never heard of. It's now started to happen that people who are hosting Saturday Night Live are people I've not heard of. And that used to never happen, right? When we were growing up, Bob, right? Saturday Night Live was the most famous people in the land were hosting, or at least the musical acts, you would know something. But I remember a moment about, I guess now 12, 13 years ago when I saw Justin Bieber on the cover of People magazine, and it said something, great pop star, something, and I'd never heard of him at that point. He was very young. He might have been 12, 13, 14, whenever he first made the cover of People. But now this is a sign also that we're old, Bob, compared to Vandana and her generation. If he tells us her heroes in music, books, and some other things we may not know. And that's life, right? We sort of go through that. And Jonathan says that he's a singer-songwriter. Paula says beloved singer. And 3 people of different age groups, different backgrounds have not heard of him, which tells you it's not his fault. It's not a commentary on him, but it just tells you how we live in different circles, and in different circles, different things happen. So Vandana, I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 quick stories. So which one would you like me to go to?
I was thinking, I know that this is not news, it's not essential news, but twins in India, I thought that was a interesting story. There were these newborn twins in India who have been named Corona and COVID to keep it topical. So the girl child is Corona and the boy is COVID, and that made headlines. So I just thought that was, we find that interesting.
Yes, I do. Corona and COVID, because those are the 2 names that it's known as. And so the twins were born, which part of India? I
in Chhattisgarh.
Okay, and this is, but the photo has nothing to do with this. This is a woman in Cal on a 21-day shutdown. But what a story.
Yeah.
Preeti Varma is the 27-year-old mother of the twins. The delivery happened after facing several difficulties, and therefore my husband and I wanted to make the day memorable. And they certainly will have done that. Imagine growing up.
The father said, the names are beautiful on their own, and Corona is Latin for crown.
Yes, it is. That is true. It is. That is what the coronavirus means. It just means it has a crown-shaped parts of that. And Jonathan is teaching us, died nearly a week ago, but held on, it seems. Curiously, I got the information from friends in London. And look, you made Twyla smile, Vandana, with the twin story. So that is pretty cool. Sabahat recommends listening to the latest episode of How to Pakistan. Really worth listening to. Their take on Pakistan in the age of COVID is positive to the extent possible. Points they raised apply beyond Pakistan. So that's a podcast that Sabahat recommends. So that's pretty cool. And Steve Taylor says, John Prine, oh my God, that's the way that the world goes round. And he's put in a link on the YouTube. Thank you, Steve, for doing that. We also lost the lead singer of the band that sang Stacy's Mom, and also sang The Way That Thing You Do from that movie starring Tom Hanks. And that was that big follow-up. Bob will remember the sequence of this. He won an Oscar for Forrest Gump. He won an Oscar for Philadelphia. And then That Thing You Do was going to be the next, like in a row, we thought he'd win a bunch of Oscars. And then I don't think he's won, somebody can correct me, whether he's won an Oscar since then, or as many as we thought he would win. But of course, Tom Hanks was also a reason that the president started taking all of this seriously, right? The day the NBA closed, and Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson got sick. And that's when America kind of woke up by, oh my God, this is real. Even though they got sick in Australia, if I remember. And Steve, my condolences, was one of my favorite musicians. I'm crying now, Steve. I'm so sorry. And I wish I had heard his music before, but I promise you I will listen. There are rights issues. Otherwise, I would play the music right now. But you're not allowed to just do that because of rights stuff. So I won't do that. And of course, Bill Withers died. That did get a lot of attention. Lean on Me, and so many other great songs. Spotify has an entire This Is Bill Withers list that my wife and I were just, there's no sunshine since she's gone, like another great song and beautiful voice. And I was so happy to hear that. So do one of you have one more story each you absolutely want us to pull up? No? Okay.
I mean, no. I guess we can take suggestions, but I just find it amazing that we have people calling in from, tuning in from India, from Hawaii, and your 23rd floor.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. M.A. Ravi Kumar is watching from Colombo in Sri Lanka, so that's pretty cool, right? And Vandana, are you paying close attention to the comments because you're worried your dad may say something embarrassing? That would be, my daughter would be like that.
Actually, I'm not, but I know that I've gotten notifications saying he's tagged me on like Facebook and Twitter, so I know that that's happening.
So you're gonna go and tell him, untag me, right? So that's how my kids are now letting me mention them, but not their names, but not tag them in Facebook, because they say everybody will see it, and so they.
I told him. I was like, I'm going to do this, so you can watch it. And I feel like that was a good
compromise. Yeah, that's great. So let me get each of you folks. We could go on for a long time, but I want to give people back their evenings or their mornings. I want your dad to get to work. Lockdown, of course, but each of you give me kind of a final thought. Anything you want people to think about? Also, are you working on something that you want people to read? Because that's the other thing. People aren't reading some of the things we're writing. So if you want to give a shout out to anybody you want to give a shout out to, or a project or anything, we'll start with Vandana and then we'll go to Bob.
Yeah, I just want to shout out the place I'm working part-time at, the Juggernaut. They do great journalism for the South Asian diaspora. Lots of interesting pieces. Today was about there was an article about the migrant crisis in India and how that's being managed. And I wrote a piece for them last week on this television show, a mythological television show called the Ramayana, which is a Hindu epic, and that was originally aired in the 80s. In India, and now they're airing it again for public entertainment while India is in lockdown. So that was I wrote about that last week. But just as a final thought, there's so much content online that I'm seeing, and everyone is just putting things out, and it's very exciting. But it can be so overwhelming as well when there's so much happening. That being said, I wasn't aware of this, but lots of films that were going to come out over the next couple of weeks are actually being released online early. And I found that out just before I got on this call, and I just wanted to say that, there's a lot of content that's been coming out online. So I think now is as good a time as any to appreciate art.
Yeah, absolutely. And our friend, my dear friend Anita, who I've known for 30 years, is watching from Chennai. She's a former New Yorker. Anita, I want you on the show one of these days to talk about what's happening in India. So please let's connect over that. And we're just showing the juggernaut.com on online. And this is an unusual Indian publication because they charge money. You get a 7-day free trial, and they're donating $5 to the Food Bank of New York City. Please give my best to Snigdha, who is the former McKinsey consultant who had a dream and pursued it, and wish her the very best. And I'd love to have her on a show in the weeks and days ahead. It would be great to have her. So please give her my very best. Okay, so and that's folks, that's Vandana Menon. Please follow her, Vandana_Menon. And she's a freelance journalist, so hire her. If you have a project And we have several people commenting. Please do keep commenting. Please email me if you have suggestions. So Vandana, I'll let you go, and I'll say goodbye to Bob. So thank you very much, Vandana.
Thanks for having me. Bye. Good night.
Okay, bye-bye. And thank you, by the way, Vandana, you've been live tweeting the series with Rose, and you both have been doing such a good job. Again, I just want to show you these numbers, incredible numbers that people are retweeting and resharing on a very difficult hashtag, right? We had 5 million people reached, 20 million impressions. That's why people should sponsor this show, because we have great content, and I can help hire some people, give them some freelancers some money to help produce the show better than I do it myself. So Vandana, thank you for what you're doing. And I really appreciate you. And Bob saying bye to you too.
Yeah, bye. It was nice meeting you.
All right, Bob Anthony, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing okay, Sree.
Okay.
It's always educational to talk to you. I believe me, I get a lot out of these, because the WhatsApp limitation, I had just seen that, but I wasn't sure what it was. It's great doing these.
No, thank you. And any final thoughts for people as they're trying to keep up with the news and the tech news in particular, because that's your forte? We should tell people you have 1 million followers on Pinterest, and you said something on my show the other night on WBAI when you were a guest that really disturbed me, Bob. You said that you are not sure you would want to willingly go to the CES Consumer Electronics Show, which is like a food critic to me saying they're not going to go to the world's best restaurant, because you're not sure how crowds will be managed going forward. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. As you know, I go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas every year, and I did go in January. And even now, people who went to the show are talking about whether they might have caught something there. The discourse is going back and forth as to whether that would be possible. But right now would be one of those times when I'd be figuring out, oh, do I have time to go to the Samsung's press conference? No, it conflicts with this press conference. Maybe I can do both if I take the subway. But and nothing's happening now. As she said, a number of phones are being released early because there's no moment to do the press event or to do the big show. So they're just being released without the trumpets. So for me, that's weird. So I'm trying to keep busy here. As I'm getting ready to go on the air with you, I just finished a story for Digital Privacy News, which is a new website which just launched last Monday, and which just launched. And I'll be writing about how misinformation has corrupted the news coverage of coronavirus. And that's digitalprivacy.news, not .com, .news. And that my story should be up later in the week. But yes, I'm 1.1 million followers on Pinterest, and I'm New York Bob all over the place: Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and
let's give a shout out to this. I've not heard of them. By the way, Anita says yes. Let's talk about the art sector and languishing independent artists. Let's talk. And so I'm glad. By the way, I didn't even know there was a .news extension.
Yes.
So that's that domain. So that's top level domain, TLD as they say. There's all kinds, right? There's .group, which we use for Digimentors, but there's so many. But let's give them a shout out. Launching in the middle of this is really difficult. There's more attention being paid.
I wondered why they did that, but they went ahead and did it. Yes.
At Digital Privacy, they must have had to pay for somebody who must have been squatting on that. They must have bought it. But let's give them a shout out for doing this in the middle of the crisis, launching. We hope advertisers will follow. This is the mission of the Magnuson Institute, now a Nevada nonprofit. So maybe that's why they're able to do it. Maybe they had some funding, but kudos to them. And I'm just looking to see if I can see the executive team is Peter Magnuson, founder and publisher, and Todd Beeman is editor-in-chief.
Todd Beeman is the editor I worked with. He's been around a while. He was with BET Weekend News and a lot of other places. So a little shout out to him for finding me for the story.
Yes, and you're a freelancer, right? So people can hire you. He's at New York Bob. Anywhere else they can find you?
Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and on LinkedIn. If you want to find me, LinkedIn is the professional way to go. That's where I'll be looking.
And you're Robert or Bob?
I'm New York Bob on LinkedIn as well. Robert, middle initial, S as in Sam, Anthony. I'm
upset you didn't say S as in Sree, obviously.
Oh, yes. Excuse me.
I love seeing you smile, Bob. Thank you so much,
Yes.
folks. Bob is a hero of mine, a friend of mine. I'm so lucky to have him in my life, and I salute you, Bob, for all your leadership, running the Deadline Club, paving the way for so many of us who went into tech journalism, and continuing to fly the flag of quality reporting and journalism today. Everybody, please follow New York Bob. That's the perfect Twitter name as well, and Instagram, Pinterest, all of that stuff. And I wish you the very best, Bob, in your work. And I hope you'll come back. And if you like this format, we can mix it up and do it again.
Yes, right back at you, Sree. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And that was Bob Anthony who joined us. We're so grateful to him for being here. I'm grateful to you for being here. It's 10:30 at night here on the 26th straight day that I have done this series. And I have learned so much thanks to all of you. On our Instagram live, we had 73 people watching, which is pretty cool. And they were seeing the back end of how the sausage is made. And now it is on my live, where they put the stories, it's there. So you can see it there. I'm sreenet on Instagram. Before we go, I'm going to thank our sponsors, as always. A goodbye, a melancholy goodbye to Tim Sohn and Sohn Social Media Solutions so he's Tim at Sohn Social Media Solutions, SOHN. Please follow him. Please reach out to him. He's doing a live streaming course. He gave us a great plug for the value of sponsoring this show. SohnSocialMediaSolutions.com. He's a collaborator of mine. We've worked on so many projects. We're going to do a lot more together. He gave me my first dollar as for this show. We have other sponsors of other shows, and Bruce Springsteen says he never forgot who gave him his first $5 as a professional musician. I will never forget Tim supporting us for this show by putting money out and sponsoring us. As you can see, we charge very reasonable pricing for you to promote maybe some other thing. Maybe you don't have to promote yourself. You have a book coming, you have an article, you have a magazine, you have a nonprofit you want to support. Please give us the money so that we can reach as many people. Just email me, sree@sree.net. It's so easy to do that, and we would really appreciate the support. And I want to show you somebody who did just that. Frontlinefoodtrucks.com got an ad here because a generous anonymous third party paid for that, third-party donor, and we're very grateful. Frontlinefoodtrucks.com. Please go in and donate right now if you appreciated the show. Please donate to frontlinefoodtrucks.com. They're trying to raise money to feed the frontline healthcare workers in New York City and also support the New York Food Truck Association. And I want to tell you that the founder, Bob Goldberg, is the son of the former child parenting reporter of 25 years at New York One. And it's so great that her son has grown up to be the president of the New York Food Truck Association and doing such good things. I like to think that means that she did a good job raising him, and that was Shelley Goldberg was the correspondent for 25 years. So please, right now, in her honor, in the honor of the food truck workers, the healthcare workers, please go right now and donate to Frontline Food Trucks. $5, anything makes a difference at their GoFundMe, and the money will help multiple people, and it'll also show the value of sponsoring my show so that more people will consider doing that. And I hope you will just email me if you want to sponsor. We can work out a deal. We'd love for you to be part of this and to get the word out here. Rose says the great author Tommy DePaola died, not of COVID-19. Mark Lee says, bring Todd Beeman on if you can. That's a good idea. I hope Bob is listening and will consider that. Mark says, say hello to him for me, and Bob would like you on my podcast. So people get booked on different shows and end up in articles after being here. So many performers, musicians, dancers, training and taping from their living rooms. Fascinating show. We'll check out digitalprivacy.news, not .net. Digitalprivacy.news. Please check that out. Paula Kiger says good night all. And Tommy DePaula is the correct spelling, says Rose, if somebody who died. And Stefan says, Stone Social Media Solutions, find him, hire him, total pro. I love that. Thank you all for watching. I want to show you one thing that many people have asked me, why we don't have regular, easy, predictable times for my shows like we do for the New York Times Read Along, 8:30 to 10:30 every Sunday. My WBAI show every Saturday, noon to 2, 99.5 FM, talking about COVID. Why is it that we don't have a set time for my shows? And the answer is that I don't make any money from this yet. I have a couple of sponsors, but I want to be able to pay attention to my paid clients and my work at Stony Brook and my students. And so I cannot prioritize this until we have more sponsorship. I do this because I want to help people, but it has to fit into everything else that's going on in our lives. So if I can get more sponsors, I can fix a time and be that time every single day. So until then, how can you catch up with the show? How can you tell people about the show? So a couple of things. Right now, you can take a screenshot of this and show it to your friends. This is kind of an ad for the show. It tells you that we've had 285,000 viewers and 57 guest speakers in the first 25 shows, and from 6 countries and 25 cities. And we've got a comment there from Vinay Kamath, who says this is an essential show and uplifting. Thank you so much. We've had 8 doctors. We'll have more. But look on the screen. We were talking about WhatsApp earlier. There's now a WhatsApp button on the screen. And so anybody right now, if you pull out your phone, I'll give you a bigger version of that. You'll just pull out your phone. And if you have an iPhone, you can just point it at it. And if you don't have an iPhone, you can, if you have an Android, you know how to get a QR code. You know how to read a QR code very easily. But when you do that, you'll see WhatsApp is triggered and this little notification comes down. You click in on that and you get an invitation to join my Sree show alerts. And what are those? Those are meant to be a way for me to commit to telling you when I'm on the air, and I've got my Bitmoji there. So this is me trying to be creative. And so I've got a few people who've signed up. But again, I'm just going to show you the link so you can do it right now. You can get an alert. As soon as I know anything about the programming, I will add you on there. And it's very simple. So please check that out. You just join that by using WhatsApp right now. You can do that. So it's something that I am trying to do so that more people can know when I'm on, and also share some programming notes. In the description, somebody already got mad at me for how I described it. I said announcement only group. So this is not a chat room or anything, just announcements for the Sree show alerts. Also, if I happen to get COVID-19, I will tell this group first. And people got mad at me, and I wrote there, you got to laugh or you will cry all day. You know what I mean, folks. We have to smile. We have to laugh. I hope you will connect with me. And my mom's watching from Trivandrum. I don't want to scare her, but thank you to my mom. We love you so much and so grateful for everything you are doing. Please stay safe and well. Mark says, Stefan says, hope you're well and safe. We need to catch up. Chetna says, thank you, Sree. And Jonathan says, great show. And thank you. And Rose says, great show as well. So one more time, I'm just going to pull up that QR code so that you can just take a screenshot and you can get alerts from me when the show is live. So, and there we are. More people are joining right now. So you can do that very easily. So just point your phone at that and you can get my link. And my mom says, good morning. Love you, darling. We love you, mama. And so happy that you could be here with me in this digital format. And just absolutely thrilled that you are here. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. And a big shout out to my friend Andrew Lee. It's his birthday at Fuzzheado. Fuzzheado is his handle on Facebook, Twitter, etc. So follow him as well. LIH, Andrew Lee. All right, I'm done. You're done. I think we say goodbye. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. I should have said this before. This is why I need producers. 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do a medical show with doctors. So please join us 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. We'd love to have you join us and participate and ask questions of doctors. We all have questions. We're going to get some answers if you join us. And Rose says, happy birthday. Rose, thank you so much for all the live tweeting you have done today. Thanks very much, everybody. 7 p.m. Eastern. Bye.